There is nothing wrong with wanting to be a wealthy individual. I repeat, there is nothing wrong with wanting to be a wealthy individual. The more wealth we have, the more good we can do. I saw a post on social media that said the world needs more women billionaires. Women like Mackenzie Scott, Melinda Gates, and Taylor Swift. Women using their financial resources for good. I couldn't agree more. In 2025, my focus is definitely on building my wealth, and hopefully yours is too. But what is built must also be protected. That's why I'm so excited to talk with former financial advisor, now certified financial planner, Brittney Castro, on the show today. Brittney and I are going to talk about how women can build and protect their wealth for the long haul. At the age of 22, Brittney began her career as a financial advisor and at 28 launched her own registered investment advisory, Financially Wise Incorporated, which she sold in 2020. Brittney now serves as a certified financial planner, providing life insurance products and other resources for individuals to build and maintain their wealth. Brittney has been featured in media outlets such as CNN, CNBC, The Wall Street Journal, The New York Times, Glamour, and so many more. Brittney lives in LA and enjoys meditating, cooking, and dancing. Hello, Brittney. Thank you so much for
Okay.
coming on the show today. I
Yeah.
think this conversation is the perfect way to kick off the new year. And maybe we can start by you sharing just a little bit more detail about your career and journey in finance. From 22 until now, you've done some pretty amazing things.
I know it feels like another lifetime, honestly. I'm like, oh, I did that. But I think that's just the good news is I'm living more in the present. So sometimes I forget the things I've done in the past. Yeah, so I mean, have had a great career. I've done financial planning for years. Then, like you said, I sold my business in 2020. When I was running my own firm, I was also doing brand partnerships and speaking. So I was working with brands like Chase, Mint, Intuit, handful of others. And I really loved that aspect, which is more like financial education and marketing. So when I sold my financial planning practice, I focused on that full time for a few years. And then I was like, okay, maybe I do something. So that's why I still offer life insurance and annuities. I don't do the complete financial planning like I used to. But the good news is I work with a lot of financial planners who refer me that side of the business because in finance, there's just a lot, obviously, in any given financial situation. So a lot of times there's, outsourcing of which professional offers what to a client. So, and now I have a job as head of education at a fintech insurtech company. So it's
Wow.
kind of like a wonderful journey of combining all these skills, experiences, and now I love my job and I love my team and everything that I do there. But yeah, I've seen a lot when it comes to financial planning through my own life, through working with thousands of clients. So I think it's just like I forget sometimes how cool it is because I do have that kind of like insider knowledge that a lot of people don't get to access of like how people really think about their money, what they really have behind the scenes going on with their finances and what it takes to, reach certain goals or acquire a certain amount of success financially speaking.
Yeah. Well, and the fact that you started so young, I mean, I have, initial consultation calls with women in their early 20s and I just, I like to hone in on them like just start now because you're so young, time is on your side. You can really build and make so much in terms of your financial situation the earlier you start. So I'm curious, have you always been interested in finance because, you did start at a very young age?
No, it wasn't like one of those things I dreamt about as a kid, but I had an idea like when I was younger, I wanted to be, I think like in business. That's all I knew, like business. And then I graduated with a degree in business economics, and I just got a job offer as a financial advisor out of college. And it was like still, I mean, some companies still do it, but it was still when like financial institutions had like a training platform for young hires. And so I went through that, like a really intensive training 60-hour work week minimum, type of schedule, but it really set the foundation, one, to be in finance and learn what it takes to run a business, get clients, do the job. Um, and I think just, by saying yes to the first job and then you kind of see what works and what doesn't work, you just continue to make decisions to like navigate your career path. But yeah, I wasn't like, oh, I want to do finance.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think that makes it all the more sweet that, if business was kind of your goal at a young age, it only took you 6 years to kind of go from financial advisor to running your own firm. So
Yeah, that's
commendable.
thank you. Thank you. I think a lot
So,
of it was being naive too, like, oh, I'm just gonna start my own firm and you don't know what you don't know. So yeah, I've definitely taken a lot of risks.
yeah, but you know what they say, no risk, no reward,
That's
right?
true. Yeah.
So I'm curious, especially, being a young woman in the finance industry, at least, back then, what were some of the biggest hurdles that you experienced just being a woman in the finance industry? Did you have hurdles? Did you experience them? Especially because, it was at one point in time a very male dominated industry.
Yeah. I mean, it still is for the
Yeah.
most. And yeah, I mean, looking back, it's funny because I don't associate with it at all anymore. I don't relate to that. But yeah, I think it was very obvious when I started. I was like one of the only women at the firm that I was joining and in the like training and kind of like the new hire group. Um, so it was very obvious because I was like doing well, and in finance, there's a lot of like qualifying trips. So if you qualify based on production, you get to go to these trips. So I would go on those trips at a very young age and like see the rest of the financial advising community and be like, oh man, I really stick out like a sore thumb here. Like, obviously, I'm not like the rest of the people. So that's actually really what inspired me a lot to start my own firm was like, okay, I'm a young woman. I'm very different than most of the industry. And I just want to have my business in a way that like works for me, serves the demographic that I wanted to serve, which at that time was like a lot of women professionals or young couples, which nobody was really going after because typically everyone in the financial industry wants to go after the big people with money, right? Like
Hmm.
more money, more business profit potential. So, yeah, I kind of just carved out this unique niche early on, and it ended up working well for me because I was able to make a name quickly for myself in the industry because I was so different. And then I was leveraging social media way back when nobody was really doing it in the finance space. And still a lot of people don't do it in the finance space because so much rules and regulation, compliance wise, which really restricts them. So I was just like, well, I'll go independent. I'll start my own firm so I can do all the marketing I want to do. And that really served me. So I think what I did for myself was like, okay, yeah, obviously I'm a young woman, things are different. I could use this as like I'm a victim and like all these experiences that, I had experiences that weren't always like pleasant or great, and like focus on that or turn it into an opportunity and like leverage it. So I leveraged it and I would actually sell myself often for speaking gigs as like, well, you need me because I'm a young woman in finance. Like that's me, like because I'm different. So it really like helped me in my marketing and my branding early on. And then I just didn't really like ever let it be an issue for me.
Where do you think that confidence came from? I mean, that is something where I feel like, certain women in that position may just hone in on what's happening to them instead of leveraging it as an opportunity. So, do you
Yeah.
have any insight into where that confidence came from for you to make that choice and really go through with it?
Yeah, I mean, probably just my upbringing. I mean, my father's a strong Mexican man, like so he just instilled a lot of work ethic and strength into me. And then also I grew up with brothers, so to me I was
Mm.
never like intimidated. I was like, "Oh, guys are just guys. Like they're going to do guy things." And I'm not going to like think of it as negative. I'm just like, "Okay, we're different. I'm a woman. I do things differently." And also my spiritual path, when I really started to unwind like how I was told to be successful, which was a very masculine way of grinding and hustling and forcing, and like learn more about, okay, I'm a woman, I have unique skill sets, like empathy comes easy to me, compassion, like, I can relate to people easily. Like, let me leverage those and lean into those. And so through experience, just by learning to trust myself and do things my own way, and then seeing, oh, it's starting to work. Like, people resonate that I'm like this. I'm not just like selling, 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 or grinding, working 16 hours for what,
Mhm.
So I think just also through experience really helped me find my unique version of it.
That's very inspiring to hear.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
it takes time because so much, like man, woman aside, so much of society tells you in order to be successful, you have to do things this way. But like we all have our different versions of success.
Right.
So what you might think is successful, I might not. And that's like the beauty of it. Like just because, like even with business or career, yeah, if I worked more, I could probably make more money, but I don't want to. Like, I also
Yeah.
want other things in my life that aren't monetary focused. And to me, that's a successful life. Good relationships, health, family, friends, community, spiritual growth. Like, so yeah, I think it's just learning and going through life. You start to get more of these experiences.
Definitely. And I think an important part of it too is getting clear on what it is that you want, right? And what you value, because your decisions should ultimately align with those values.
Yeah, and it's hard because sometimes you don't know. And
Right.
then and then there's many times in my life where I'm like, I don't really know what I want next, but I'm just going to do this one thing and see what happens, see what I learn. And then I'm like, oh, I actually didn't really like that. Or I learned I liked it, whatever the situation was, right? And then you
Mhm.
kind of start to do more of what you like and more of what brings results for you and less of the things that don't work or you don't like.
Yeah. I think that's such a great way to approach life because time is going to keep going regardless, right? So you can kind of sit still and think about, the things that you want, or you can get out there and try to figure it out and see what you like, see what you don't like, and use that information to help you just make better decisions as you go.
Exactly. And another thing that I've really learned in just my spiritual practice is like it's okay to change directions. Like you're not locked in, like I sometimes our minds think we're locked in or we can't make a change, but really you could at any given moment decide to change things for yourself. And so that kind of freedom when you're making decisions always one kind of soothes me because I'm like, okay, well, whatever decision I make, I'll learn from it. So as long as I'm like you said, not just like sitting back, watching life pass, but I'm actively in life, learning as I go, making decisions. Maybe they're not the best decisions at times, but hey, at least I learned. And now I have that wisdom and experience for next time.
Yes, my brother, he said something once and it stuck with me. He said, lessons, not losses. And it resonated.
I know. Yeah.
So, I definitely want to talk about building wealth. And I think the term build wealth is pretty broad. I think certain actions can have a positive impact on a person's wealth over time. And, this community, the City Girl Savings community, is really focused on helping women establish the proper foundation to see success in their finances and build that wealth long term. So, I would love to hear if you could share some things women can do if they are just getting started on their financial journey.
Yeah, well, you mentioned one, which is invest early. So I think when you're investing, one thing to always keep in mind is to have a little safety net, or I call it a cash cushion, which is actually important through your entire life. So usually like 3 to 6 months of your core expenses, you want to have some liquid account, maybe high interest savings, earning a little bit of money. Maybe not as much money as if you invested it, but it's there. It's there for if you lose a job or decide to make a job switch or a health thing comes up and you need to pay out of pocket before your, insurance kicks in or something, or an opportunity presents itself and you want to have some extra money to take advantage of the opportunity. I mean, really, that cushion is important because that will allow you to sustain your long-term investments without going to your 401k to take money out, getting hit with the taxes, the penalty, or relying on debt. So cushion is actually, I think, first and foremost, the one goal to focus on. And even if it takes a few years to build it, because that's the reality, it'll probably take some time. Like, not to say you can only do that and nothing else, but like make that one of the priority goals because that will then help you with everything else. And then, like building wealth, I mean, when we think about investing, it could be in the stock market. So that could be your 401k. So I think if you have a job and they're matching, you at least want to put enough in to get the full match. Like that's just an easy win because it's almost free money. Like if you put in 3% and your company matches 3%, then you want to make sure you're doing that. Um, and then outside of that is where a lot of discipline comes in, a lot of
Yes.
strategy to figure out, okay, like you said, like what is it that I want? And then clearly define it so that when you're set up savings or set up an investment every month, you remember what that's going for. Because I think that is going to be critical. If you don't really know, or you're just like, it's easy to spend money, right? It's like,
Yes.
oh my, it's like sometimes now I think just if I think about it, it's going to be purchased, is the next step because just the matter of click, it's in my cart being delivered tomorrow. So it's super easy to spend money. So we almost have to set up systems or barriers to not spend our money or make sure we're also saving and investing our money just as good as spending.
Yes, I think those are all fantastic points, and I love the notion of a cash cushion because, if all of your money is tied up in stocks or, in your 401k or anywhere that you can't easily access it, you're gonna be forced to do something you don't want to do, whether that's use a credit card or,
Yeah.
liquidate some funds that you don't want to. So, great advice. I would love if we could talk just a little bit about debt, right? Because a question I get often
Yeah.
is, should I pay off debt or should I save? Should I have an emergency fund before I pay off my debt, or should I have, Dave Ramsey says 1,000. Should I do that? So I would love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I mean, it really depends on the amount of debt, the type of debt, right? So, yeah, I do believe in you want to have a little cushion, even if it's $1,000 before you get aggressively um until you work aggressively toward paying off your debt. And then just list out your debt. So if it's a student loan, put like student loan, balance you owe, minimum payment, and interest rate. And that should all be credit card clearly defined because what you're going to do is then see out of your budget or out of the money you have to work with every month, how much more do you add toward those debt payments to start to pay it down, pay down the balance while still hopefully putting some money into your cushion. So I think like if that's the case, like maybe you balance or even balance all three cushion, debt, investments, 401k, and that ratio or breakdown is going to be very different depending on the entire situation, right? What debt, how much you have in your cushion, what age you are. So I think it's always good though, one with debt, just to be super clear. I mean, a lot of people don't really even know how much they have, what the interest rate is. And I get it. It's like maybe overwhelming or you don't want to deal with it. So you think I'll just push it off. But I know anything we push off in life, it just doesn't get fixed on its own. So
Right.
it's gonna come back at some point. So yeah, I think it's just being brave and courageous to look at the situation and say, okay, great. This is what it is. How do I make it better? And a year from now, if I look up, what am I going to do to say, yeah, and this last year I've progressed. And a lot of times I used to always encourage clients, like, if you can witness, so like take yourself out of the equation, pretend you're a financial planner looking at this client situation. So that way we can disconnect our emotions a little bit and say, okay, this is just the situation this person has. What is the best approach to get this better? So that always helps because money is very emotional. And I think sometimes, well, I know most of the times people don't do the things they need to do because of the emotions.
Mhm.
Because it's easy to put a plan. It's easy to say, here's your budget, Rhea, like go follow it. What's hard is on the day to day, oh, but I really want to spend money. Oh, I don't know, like, oh, I want that new thing, or this debt feels like it's not going away, so I'm just going to stop paying, or whatever the thing is. That's the hard part. So,
Yes.
yeah, the more we can just remember, it's okay, that's natural. We're human, we're going to have emotions, but to like figure out what are those emotions? Why do I want to not look at this? Like, that's kind of like the self-discovery work, which is really cool because when you do it in any area of your life, it'll translate to hopefully every area. But with finances, especially, I think so often people feel like, oh, I'm the only one who's ever dealt with this. And it's like, well, no, people got good at managing money because they worked on it. Or people are generous with their money because they're like detached and they like, no problem. They want to go make more money, give more money. Like they work on it. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
And, it kind of goes back to what we were talking about values too. If you don't really know your values, you don't know what you really want out of life, it's very easy to just do the first thing that comes to your mind because it feels good, like that instant gratification. But long term, it's usually not the best way to go.
Yeah. And also, like, if you're going to do it, you might as well have consciousness while you're doing it. Be like,
Yes.
okay, I'm spending this money. I shouldn't be spending it, but here I am. Like at least have some lightness and fun because oftentimes I think people equate money with serious or heavy, but it doesn't have to be that either.
That's such a great point. I think, one thing that I like to kind of encourage my community and my clients is to just be intentional. It's not about if you buy the item or not. It's, are you aware of what you're doing? Because if you're not, that's a big problem, and you're going to look at your credit card statement and be like, "Oh my gosh, I didn't even know I spent this money."
Yeah. Or like if you're gonna do it like subconsciously, you might be like, ooh, feeling like uneasy or regret. Well, if you're gonna do it, you might as well enjoy it. Like you might have like what's the point of like being miserable while you're like spending money? Like it's really cool actually when you start to witness what your behaviors are. It's wild.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, I think that's the first step to change too, is recognizing what's happening and how it's making you
Yeah.
feel. And, if spending money is making you feel good on a bad day, what are other things you can do to feel good on a bad day?
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
Lately, the older I get to, the more I'm like, ooh, if I don't spend money, I feel cool. Like, oh, I didn't buy the thing I wanted. Or like I'll like sometimes if I'm just like having one of those nights and I'm like, oh, I want all new clothes. Like today I just want to buy like I'll just go and put things in my cart, but I won't like hit purchase until I come back and look at it or something like that.
A good form of self-control. I posted on Threads maybe a week ago that I didn't buy iced coffee today and I deserve some recognition. And I actually got a lot of recognition
That's a
for
good
having
one.
that self-control because I love
Good
my iced coffee. So I
one.
resonate. Okay, so Brittney, let's say that we have a listener that is hearing our conversation right now. They don't have debt, they paid off all their debt, they follow a budget, so they're intentional with their spending, they are contributing to a retirement plan. And after all is said and done, they actually do have some money left over every month.
Yay.
Yeah, I mean, that alone, like kudos.
Yay.
What can that person do to build wealth on a bigger scale outside of everything that they're doing thus far?
Yeah, I would say like one, look at what the next investment vehicle is going to be. Maybe you just so for example, it could be a house or real estate, which is a good one to add into the portfolio mix. So maybe that extra cash flow will go into some sort of high yield savings because you're going to have a down payment to buy property. And I think that's a good goal to have for yourself. And if that just feels too much or too overwhelming, or like, no, I don't want the burden or responsibility of owning real estate, then the next best thing is just open up another investment account. Maybe it's not a retirement one, so not a 401k or IRA, it's just an investment brokerage account. But that allows you to buy into whatever stocks, mutual funds, ETFs, S&P index, grow your money. The whole idea is like, how do you grow your money faster than inflation, faster than a savings account? Um, and still give you the flexibility. So if you needed that money, at least it's not a retirement account, it's not locked up, but it's still growing, gives you flexibility that you're using your money wisely. So I think real estate or just having another investment account.
And at what point do you think someone needs a financial advisor, right? Let's say the person listening, is open to that idea, doesn't know where to start. Should they go with a financial advisor, or are there options, in your opinion, for them to get started on their own and then take it from there?
I think it's like a coach. You can always hire a coach to help you learn what you need to learn faster, have discipline, get a plan in place. And then after that, maybe you can execute on your own and have discipline. But I really think reframing financial advisors, not where, I mean, there are a lot of options now. So there are financial advisors who will work with you if you don't have a lot of money or if you have debt. So it's not like how it used to be, like maybe you need a certain amount of liquid portfolio or net worth to work with a financial advisor. No, now, like if you looked up online, like CFP has a great search engine, like financial planner, some just charge hourly or some charge like packages. And if, as long as you can pay them, it would be worth it because you really want to think about it. This is hopefully a professional who's going to bring insight into your life, bring education, bring tools, bring strategies to get you set up so that you're optimizing your money moving forward. And hopefully like help you implement and like stay focused. Now, whether you sustain them for the initial setup for a year, all the years to come is up to you and kind of like how you want to manage and be proactive in your finances. But yeah, I think really everybody needs a financial advisor. It's funny because I know it's a luxury kind of item. It's not mandatory, but like no one really understands money. We don't get taught this in school. So at some point you have to invest money and time and energy to learning this. So whether it's a course, financial planner, something, you need to learn it.
Yeah, and there's so many options out there now, outside of, financial advising. There's courses, like you said, there's coaches, there are college classes you can take.
Yeah.
Like there are a lot of options.
I think you just have to be real with how you learn because like online courses are a dime a dozen. I mean, but are you really going to do it? Are you really going to actually take the online course and complete it? Or are you just going to start it? Are you going to and like take the course, learn, and then actually implement some of the things? Like, so I think you just have to be really honest, or just go to YouTube, watch all the videos you can on YouTube and start to decipher what's good advice, what's bad advice. Um, but I think a lot of finance is like learning a whole language and sometimes just having someone help you leapfrog or start with a good foundation is, the fastest way.
Yeah, I mean, you can save yourself a lot of time by investing in someone that's going to help you at least get your, feet off the ground when it
Yeah.
comes to your money situation. It's time or money. You're either going to spend all of your time trying to learn or you're going to spend your money and save yourself some time. So, what matters to you?
Yeah, and I know myself well. I'm a good student. So but I'm happy to pay someone. I'll pay you, teach me what I need to know to get started, and then give me like guidance on how to keep it going, and I'll do it. Like I know myself that way, but I'm also like a big believer. I'm not like for fitness, for example. I know there's every video out there possible on like the best way to do squats or whatever, but I want someone to tell me a personalized plan for me
Yes.
based on my specific goals and how often I need to do it every week. The reps teach me the correct form so I'm not messing up my body or my back. And then I'll continue. But that's a person. That's like you being with me, knowing my body, knowing what I want, what my goals are, and then like giving me some sort of personalized game plan.
I'm similar to you. I need the one-on-one approach. I mean, I can take a course or I can, go learn something and try to implement, but knowing that I have someone who essentially has what I want or has been where I want to go, that makes
Yeah.
a huge difference.
Yeah. And to me, it's a little more fun. I don't
Yeah.
know.
It definitely is. You got someone rooting you on and
I
holding
know.
you accountable, which is big.
Yeah, we all, I mean, I think nowadays it's like there's so much going on in life. They're like every person, whether you're single, married, kids, no kids, there's just a lot like that happens in any given day. And so to have somebody who just kind of like helps keep you accountable and on track is, I don't know, I appreciate that as an adult.
I definitely do too. And also too, like how long are you gonna, how long are you gonna let time pass before you actually get that accountability? Because, you can start something or think you're gonna start something and then you don't hold yourself accountable and time is gonna keep going. And then what? You're gonna wish you started years ago. So if you know that about yourself, you need to just kind of take that leap and make it worth it for yourself.
Yeah, exactly.
So you mentioned investment vehicles, and I would love to talk a little bit more about that. What are some wealth building or investment vehicles that you recommend? We can talk just general stocks and bonds, life insurance, retirement plans. I would love to hear which ones you recommend and maybe why you would recommend them.
Yeah, so I guess in my mind, usually there's three main ones for like a majority of people. The first one is real estate. I think that one's easy. It's tangible. You see a house, you buy it at 500,000, it hopefully will go up in value, and that's an investment. Like the value is increasing in which you can sell it for a higher amount, um, or keep the asset, but it's still growing for you. So that's one. Maybe you can buy a rental property or investment real estate. So those are good. Like I live in LA, so a lot of my clients before I sold my business, it was in the pandemic. They started to buy outside of LA because it was during COVID and like it was very difficult to afford a house in LA, but they could buy a house in the desert, which was only like an hour or two drive, or the mountains for a lot cheaper. And then they just had it as an investment property, which worked really well because during that time, everybody was escaping anyway out of the cities. Um, so that's another way, like maybe like this is a creative way. Maybe you still rent your primary location just to live in a major city where the cost of living's higher, but you buy something outside of your city and use that. The second one is really the stock market. So keep it vanilla. I feel like you can do really good in the S&P index and like never change a thing and be happy. The thing about the stock market is like you're always trying, or people are always trying to find ways to do better than, let's say, the S&P index, which is like average 9-10% average return. So I'm not saying that you can't do better. Like if you're going to spend more time investing a good portfolio, finding an optimal blend of stocks and bonds that will hopefully perform better than just an index, then by all means go for it. But just realize that usually takes a little more time, a little bit more homework. Maybe your investment advisor is helping you with that. That would be a fee that you would pay for that. And then you kind of have to assess, is it really working for you in the long term? Are you really getting better returns than like you could just if you put it in a passive index fund? Most of the time it's not. So that's what I'm saying. But it's the idea. It's the idea of could I do better? And I also know people who do really well like that because they put the time and energy to it. Um, so investment vehicles, you could just keep it straightforward and say, I don't really want to do all that. I'm just going to invest in the index and I'm sure you'll be great. And then I would say the third thing is life insurance. So there are life insurance products. We call them permanent, but usually it's called an index universal life. It's like the main one that I would do for a client. And this is like first you have to need the life insurance. I mean, like the primary goal of life insurance is life insurance. But let's say you can afford a permanent policy, meaning this is going to last for your whole lifetime. It's not going to expire as it would like a term. Then there's cash value that you can build up inside of the vehicle, inside of the life insurance vehicle that grows tax deferred. And you can maybe down the road, not next year, but down the road, 10 years plus, take a loan from that, a tax-free loan from your life insurance vehicle. So it's a way to get some tax advantages, but it's still inside a life insurance contract. So I've seen a lot of TikToks recently about this approach, like, oh, put 50 grand in a tax-free life insurance and then take money out next year and buy real estate. And I'm like, no, that's not how it works. And like, there's a lot more like rules and requirements, and those numbers don't even make sense. Like, um, I mean, I have one, so I like having an index universal life. But I also think of it primary, like it's life insurance. Like at some point, someone's going to get this benefit, and it makes me very happy. Like I know that's a legacy. But also in the meantime, I'm growing some cash value that maybe when I'm 60, I want to take some of that money out and pay for retirement or whatever. But I'm not like looking at it as a bank account that I'm going to access next year. Like I don't think of life insurance that way. And I think it's really important with any of these strategies to make sure you understand the details and you're not just getting into something just because there's a TikTok video about it, but like
Yes.
you really know it's right for you. You understand the risks. Like because the reality is a lot of people do that and then they lapse the policy because they can't keep them alive. And so they kind of just wasted whatever, 2 years of premium and they got nothing back.
Uh, so can you take a loan from a term policy? And
No.
if the term ends and you're still alive, did all of that money essentially go to the insurance company?
Yeah. So 95%, if not more, insurance term life insurance policies never pay out. So why do you get it? Well, because it's still the cheapest. And if you need life insurance, like especially like for 20 years, you have a young child, if something happens to you, you want them to get that life insurance policy. So that's kind of like the benefit. It's the cheapest, but it's term, so it's only going to last 10 years, 20 years, 30, or whatever the term is. After that, if it ends, it ends. You have no more insurance unless you convert it within the term. In some policies, you can convert. So it's important to know that in some of these policies, you can do a return of premium. So you can pay a little bit more during the lifetime to say at the end, I'll get all my money back. So you
Mm.
just kind of have to look at the product. A lot of my clients will do a combination of both. Like, hey, you're young, you're 30, you need a lot of life insurance right now. Let's get a bulk of what you need in term. Eventually, that's going to fall off. And then a smaller amount in a permanent or IUL that's going to sustain for the rest of your life. So when your kids are gone, the mortgage is paid off, you don't need as much life insurance, but you'll still have this one. You locked in the premium, you locked in the rate years ago at your age. And now you've also gotten some cash value from it built up. So I like the hybrid approach.
Yeah, I think that's a very interesting approach. And, this is not something that is commonly taught. And clearly, there's information out there that is misleading. So it's important
Yeah.
for people to know and do their research.
Yeah, and I think people need to understand life insurance is really the only vehicle, one of the only vehicles, I should say, that provides a tax-free benefit to your beneficiary. Like, and that check comes pretty immediately. I don't know if you've experienced it, but I know firsthand family experience it. Someone passes away, you submit the claim, here's the check. No taxes on that money. And that check is very helpful to pay for the funeral, to pay
Right.
for bills that weren't paid off yet, to pay for all these expenses, and then hopefully give a legacy to whoever you want to leave behind money. So I think a lot of people still don't have life insurance, and it's like, one, I guess it's scary to talk about our own death,
Yeah.
but the reality is it's gonna happen, so you might as well look at options. And no, but I think nobody wants to leave their family in a worse off situation. I'm pretty sure like people don't go through life like I want to make it miserable for my family after I'm gone.
Right.
But that's a lot of what happens when things aren't taken care of during your lifetime.
Would you recommend life insurance to someone who, let's say they have assets like homes that are paid for, they have, $1 million in investments? Like at what point is life insurance maybe not, an appropriate option?
That could be like maybe they have a large estate, they don't need more money to pass behind. But even in estate planning, what happens at a larger scale is people get life insurance to pay the estate tax off.
Mm,
At death, there's still something called estate tax. And if your estate is big enough, you're going to get taxed. So a lot of times in that strategy, they still lock in an insurance policy that will say, okay, I'm going to get $1 million. That'll take care of the taxes. So still the estate goes to the people. They don't have to pay taxes out of that estate, which then lowers it. So there's a
Mm.
lot of creative ways, tax planning, estate planning, where life insurance comes into play, or like even in business scenarios, like if you have a partner, like you want to get insurance on each other so that if something happens, enough money goes into the business to help that a survivor partner sustain and keep the business alive. So that's like buy sell agreements, all sorts of things with life insurance. Mhm.
One other thing I would just want to get your thoughts on is, we're talking about cash value for some of these, whole life policies.
Yeah.
Are you taking out a loan with that? And do you have to pay it back if you take, part of the cash out or, what
Yeah.
is that? Okay.
So that's like the premise of that. It's like a cat. It's almost like you think about it like a sub account. It's literally a sub account and it gets credited based on whatever index, the S&P index, whatever you choose. It grows. You then have access to take a loan out. You don't have to pay back the loan, but that does get deducted from the death benefit. So, I don't know, let's say it's $1 million policy, built enough cash value to 200,000, you take out 100,000, it still gets, you know, calculated at death of whatever's remaining goes to beneficiary. Um, and also you don't want to think about the loan like, oh, I'm going to take money next year. Like, no, you probably didn't even put enough money in, first of all, to keep that policy alive or sustain, because you have to realize it's kind of like, I always like to say to clients, kind of like a home, right? You can build equity in the home, but you don't want to tap into the equity right away, right?
Right.
Because you never know, maybe values are going to go down, now you're underwater. You're running the risk of not being able to afford that house. Same is true with your life insurance. But I've also seen it many times where clients kept the policy 10 years later, took a loan, didn't pay it back, worked out for them, have the policy still. Um, so it is cool when it works.
Well, and you make a good point. If you do take that money out and you don't pay it back, it will reduce what is paid out, in the event of your death. So it's not just money you get to keep and not have any ramifications for not putting back.
Yeah, and I think I guess the best way to think about it is that like it provides that tax advantages. So if you do it right, you take the money out as a tax-free loan. It's tax-free money that grew, accumulated, and you never paid taxes on it. So that's kind of the benefit of it.
So basically, when someone is paying into their life insurance, they're essentially investing, right? They're investing
Yeah.
in maybe the
In both
stock market.
sources. Mhm.
Okay. Okay. So that's how it's growing. And then you don't pay any taxes on that growth, which is really nice.
Well, technically, what happens is a life insurance takes the money, invests it, but then gives you like a sub account credit based on because there's a floor and a cap. So
Okay.
that's how they hedge their bets too.
Interesting.
But that's kind of nice because you're never going to go negative in your account if it's an index one, right? So you can never get a negative return in your cash value, which is important. There are variable universal lives, but I don't sell those. I think they're too risky
Mm,
for most people and what they're trying to do. Mhm.
okay. Interesting. And then, so the premium is all of the premium basically, excuse me, paid into that policy, or is a portion going to the insurance company? Like, where does the insurance company make their money, essentially?
Yeah, I mean, insurance companies make their money in a handful of ways, but one of the things about, okay, so remember how I said like 95% of terms never pay out? It's a
Yeah. Yep.
big money maker, right? I collected a premium from Rhea for 30 years, never had to pay her out on this policy. So this other person who did I actually did have to pay out. It's fine, I have the money. Also, like think about it, like an insurance company collects premiums, they invest the money. Hopefully they're investing money that's growing, then they only have to pay out a portion of it. That's how it all works.
Mm,
Hmm.
very interesting. And if someone is, let's say someone is just getting into the workforce, they maybe just recently graduated, they don't really have kids, they don't really have anyone that would depend on them financially. Would you recommend life insurance for that type of person?
It depends. It's kind of like start when you're early for compounding interest. Life insurance is based on your age and health. So, of course, the younger you are, the cheaper it's going to be. And you can maybe lock in a policy at a really low rate in your 20s. But we have to look at cash flow. I mean, if it's not like huge priority, so I'm not going to say get life insurance before you save your cash cushion. That makes no sense.
Okay.
They don't need it. But like for me, I got life insurance when I was young and it served me well because then I had a medical issue come in my 30s and I got a new policy after that. I kept this one like that was written before, super cheap. And then I tried to quote myself at the age and like with my health issue after. And I
Hmm.
was like, oh man, this is like so more expensive because one, I'm older, but then two, now I have this medical history that a lot of insurance companies look at as a risk.
Mm.
Um, so that's just another thing to always remember. We're the young, usually we're the youngest and healthiest as we are today, right?
Right.
Like you're only going to get older and hopefully no health issues come, but we don't know. But another cool part is I've been in the industry for a while and the life insurance industry is different. A lot of things that used to get declined are now okay. Like, unfortunately, I think the US population is unhealthier. So they can't just decline people anymore. They have to be like, okay, well, now a lot of Americans have the same issue. So
Yeah.
it might be a little bit more expensive, but we can't decline you.
Okay, so that can work to someone's benefit. But I think, you make a good point. If you're gonna go the life insurance route, doing it as young as possible is the way to
Yeah,
go. And also make sure you pay your premiums because if
absolutely.
you if you if you forget or you don't pay your premium after, let's say, 5 years and your policy lapses, when you go to get a new policy, you could be in a totally different place with your health and obviously your age, and that will cost you.
Yeah, for sure.
Is there a grace period when it comes to like premiums? Like if
Yeah.
somebody missed it, there a grace period?
Yeah, and it depending on the type, like term is a lower grace period because literally the premium goes to pay for the cost of insurance. But usually there's a grace period of like 60 days, 90 days, and then they'll send notices. It's not like, I mean, it'd be really hard to be like, oh, I had no idea.
Yeah.
Um,
What if
they'll,
somebody passes in the grace period though?
oh, it's a good one. I think I would have to look it up, but I think it's okay. Like as long as they had, like they didn't pass after the grace period, they still have to honor it. Mhm.
Interesting. Okay. But, pay your bills on time. So you don't have to worry
Like
about that.
auto pay, it's easy. Just like everything else, life insurance can be set up auto pay. You can log into your online portal, so it shouldn't be that difficult to keep it going.
Well, very insightful. And I think, people understanding the difference between the different policies is important. And it's something that can help over time really build that wealth and protect the wealth that you do have, especially when we get
Yeah,
into the
absolutely.
estate, planning.
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome. Well, Brittany, in your opinion, what are the top three things a person can do to make the most of the money they make at this point in time?
Ooh,
Top
make
three.
make the most out of it. Um, yeah, find ways to not spend it. That's a good one. Um, and definitely find ways to grow it faster than inflation. So through investing, whether that's stock market or real estate. And then leverage as many tax advantages as you can because taxes eat away at our assets. I mean, it's just the truth. We have income, we pay taxes. We have assets, we pay taxes. So there will come a point in time where you start to realize, ooh, taxes, they're always around. So I how do I navigate in more strategic ways to pay less in taxes? So whether that means like tax advantaged investment accounts or finding ways to have more tax deductions on your tax return, like whatever it is, you got to be smart about that.
And if somebody were interested in being smart about that, as they should be interested in that, do they work with an accountant or a CPA to do that, or just, YouTube University? What's a good starting point for that?
Oh, taxes. I'm in finance. I've never once filed my own taxes. So And that could tell you whatever you want it to tell you.
Oh,
I just
leave it to the people who actually know.
I know I'm a CFP. I know tax strategies. I know certain tax laws, but I do not care to learn how to do a tax return or make sure I do it correctly. I'm not that
Interesting.
person. So I always paid an accountant. But yeah, you can do it online. Or there's a lot of services like, I don't even know. I don't want
Well,
to.
I just mean like, if somebody did want, to, have more deductions or just take advantage of opportunities to pay less taxes,
Yeah.
that doesn't necessarily mean they file their own taxes, but they do have to figure out what they need to do to make that
Yeah.
a reality.
Yeah, so like you said, take a course or hire someone to look at your situation, like an accountant or CPA, and say, hey, what do I need to do based on
Yeah.
this? Yeah.
That was a very good one. I don't think I was expecting you to say that, but that's a good one.
Well, it's funny because one of my brothers and sister-in-law, they're like tax people, like more like accounting, tax CPAs. And it's funny because even though we're both like in finance, I don't know what they know and they don't know what I know. It's like very apparent how different. It's like two separate worlds, even though they should work together. So when people tell me like, "Oh, my financial advisor helped me with my taxes," I'm like, "Well, are they an accountant? Are they a CPA?" Or vice versa. Like so many CPAs will be like, "Oh, I don't know that question. Ask your financial planner." Like
Yeah.
it's funny. Mhm.
Yeah. Well, what is next for you and what are you currently working on right now?
Ooh. I what's next? I'm really just enjoying my gig. I have a job, like I said, head of education, and it's my first year working at the company. So next is just stay there, work there.
Yeah.
So I still do life insurance and annuities on the side. I'll keep that going. But yeah, a lot of my life, and especially my work world, was just simplifying and like, so I really just love where I'm at currently.
I love that. And can you share the company you work
Oh yeah,
for?
yeah. It's called Signal Advisors. So
Signal.
it's basically a tech platform that financial advisors can use to submit their business and like manage their business. So get a lot of efficiencies by using the platform, um, and like a lot of support as well.
And as head of education, are you providing education to financial advisors on using the platform or like the general public on improving their financial literacy?
So it's a little bit of both. So really our my job is to help the advisors with whatever education content they need for their clients, but also
Mm.
like educate them on like, yeah, our platform, our products, making sure they're aware. Not we don't have products, but our platform and how it helps them. And then events and social media.
Very cool. One thing about finance is like, there's always something new. Everybody's situation is different. So there's a lot of different ways things can go. So I'm sure you stay busy.
Yeah, it's very cool. Yeah, it's so true. That's why I always tell people like don't feel bad if you don't know money or finance because I've been in the game for like 15 years and I'm like, I don't know. I'm still learning. Like that's what I'm saying.
Absolutely.
There's still so much like I got introduced to this whole IMO or insurance world that I knew the basics of, but like the back end industry of it, I didn't know really until 2 years ago when I really started to like get more into the insurance side. It's like, oh, this is a whole different back end than financial planning world that I'm so used to. So I had to learn new terms, new structures of back end businesses and how it all works, but it's fascinating.
Yeah, and knowledge is power. I mean, the more you know, the more you can do, and the more you can
Yeah.
change your world, but also like this world we live in.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, where can listeners connect with you?
Yeah, come over to brittneycastro.com. You'll see all the goodies there. You
I
can schedule
will.
a life insurance consult call with me. You can just see all my social media profiles there, follow me.
BrittneyCastro.com. I'll be sure to link to that in the show notes so people can check you out and hopefully reach out, especially if they're learning that they need life insurance after this episode.
Okay, thanks, Raya.
Thanks, Brittany.